Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Alina Islam, and I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. I'm very excited to present Lomiko Metals to you, a company with a portfolio of critical metals projects in Canada. To give you an overview of its portfolio, as well as discuss upcoming plans for its flagship Loutre Graphite project in Quebec, we have with us Gordana Slepcev, CEO and Director. Once Gordana's presentation is over, we will conclude with a Q&A session. So please put your questions into the chat box and we will get through as many as we can at the end. Before we get started though, I do need to mention the fine print. For Lomiko Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this webinar. Please read the cautionary note on page 2 of the Lomiko Metals corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this webinar does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Lomiko Metals specific disclosures. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Gordana. Please take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Alana. I'm really happy to be here today and provide update on Lomiko and on our projects. So, as Alana mentioned, there are some forward-looking statements. I'm not going to beat you anymore with that. And I'd like to start with land acknowledgement, as all our projects are located on the First Nation lands, including our graphite portfolio, which is located within Kitigan-Zibi Anishinaabe First Land Territory and Buria within James Bay EUHC territory. And for Newfoundland project that we just acquired now in January, there are no land claims as of yet that we know of. So what is really the advantage, Lomiko advantage? So we have, as I mentioned, started new investment into a critical minerals project that has exposure to antimony, silver, gold, and also some lead and zinc. This project is called Yellow Fox. It's located in the central Newfoundland. And also something that we've been really rated as the 7th biggest graphite deposit in the world. So that's a big achievement for us, and it is a result of drilling 13,000 meters in 79 holes. That was the infiltral program that was completed in 2023, and updated mineral resource was published in 23 as well. So what is really the new and updated news from Lomiko is, yes, we have received last year about 16 to 17 million now because of the US Canadian dollar exchange in the grants, 8.35 million from US DOD under Title III to finish the studies. And what that really means, it's 50% of the funds that are not repayable and non-dilutive to the future and existing shareholders of Lomiko. We also have received 4.9 million for anode piloting from the federal government. That's even more in the funding to Lomiko. That's 75% of all the costs to finish the piloting. That's also non-repayable and non-dilutive to the shareholders. And also something that people are talking nowadays are all these tariffs and export restrictions and everything else that's going on geopolitical scene. But with really graphite, which is mostly controlled and export is there by Chinese, the same with antimony, we think we have that competitive advantage as a company and a group here to provide critical minerals for energy solutions to supply to North American markets. Also, we have completed quite a bit of the work on the piloting from the Loutre graphite deposit. I'll talk a little bit more as we go through presentation. I'll talk a little bit about the graphite market, and many don't know really what the graphite's used for, but aside of the batteries for the EVs and the storage, consumer electronics, it's also heavily used in the industry, with lubricants being one of the oldest used also in nuclear industry, in the secondary batteries. So graphite's also used in your IC engines as well. Thermoplastic, construction industry, fuel cells, aerospace. So many users of the graphite. With really the standard, standard markets, like industrial markets, with the growth of anywhere between 3 to 7%, and really the batteries and energy storage growth is somewhere 20 to 22% year over year. And yeah, the big thing is really the tariffs. Everybody's talking about it, and the trade wars have started, as we know it. China has banned the shipments on gallium, germanium, antimony, and also other materials needed to tech wars, trade wars. So with all of this, the graphite hasn't been banned yet, but China has limited the exports. And the tariffs on graphite would start in 2026. And why is that really important to note is because really US doesn't have domestic sources of the graphite. There are some other groups that are developing some of the projects, and the government wanted to give them a time to really develop these projects, because what's the point of putting the tariffs when you actually don't have domestic production? And one of the reasons that we have received these grants from DoD and federal government is to build that, critical mineral supply chain, especially graphite in North America. So, everybody's talking about some of the bumps in the road as we're talking about electric vehicles and the sales, but still, in November, 1.8 million electric vehicles were sold worldwide, and December was actually the record month with 1.9 million. And the prognosis really stayed very, very good and very well. There are no many industries that actually see the growth rates over 20% year over year. So this is still very, very good opportunity for Lomiko and for investors. So as we talk about, some of the battery prices going down, the prices of anode material, so what the benchmark and also Bloomberg predict looking somewhere about $7,000 to $8,000 US per ton of spherical graphite. This is something that actually works very well with Lomiko cash flow models. This is something that we can make money and have really good returns as well. So we have done quite a bit of the testing. I'll maybe focus a little bit later on, but our materials really fits very well within consumer goods, energy storage, and electric vehicles. We also have done some work on expanded graphite for industrial applications. And all the results we have seen so far meet or exceed the industry standards. So really great results from the Loutre deposit. And then talk a little bit more about the grants and awards. As I mentioned, we have received quite a bit of the money that's non-dilutive and non-repayable. So we have started drawing the funds from all these grants and awards. So DoD grant provides 50% of all the costs to finish the studies. That includes pre-feasibility, baseline studies, and also definite feasibility study. Some of the metallurgical testing and some of the bulk sample processing. Also, in addition to this, I mentioned we have received 4.9 million in non-dilutive, non-repayable funding from the federal government to test our ores and really pilot that process from the ore, rock, crush that, grind, flute, extract. Really, as we go through that process with the flotation concentrate, which is then sold usually in the industrial application in this case, we are looking to develop this project and provide materials for the downstreams, for the anode materials for the batteries. And that's why we're stepping up with our testing. As I mentioned, we have proven on the lab scale that we can produce anode material. We're doing another smaller test in March with COREM to produce about 50 kilograms of the concentrate. And then we are already in the process of doing the permitting and the work for the bigger 200-ton bulk sample that's covered with this grant. And we intend before end of March 2027 to produce all these material, hopefully sooner, but it's all, of course, dependent on the funding and how fast we can schedule these works with the labs. So we see development of Loutre within 4 phases, with phase 1 and phase 2 being developed concurrently. Pre-feasibility study, we look to start that work hopefully within next couple of weeks and finish before end of 2025. Phase 2, I already mentioned, those are metallurgical studies and bulk sample work. We already have started the planning, we have submitted the permits, and we expect to do physical excavation somewhere in March, maybe early April. And following the results from pre-feasibility study and the metallurgical testing, we intend to take on definite feasibility study. So all these first 3 phases are covered by the DoD grants or federal grants, and they provide for 50 or 75% of all the costs to finish that work. And then following of course, the construction decision, construction would take form of the modular construction, with starting probably somewhere a little bit lower, learning the process, and then scaling up. I want to talk a little bit more about Loutre and our graphite portfolio, because we have done some work on Rousseau, which really resulted in a great discovery. And as we look at this slide from Quebec government, it shows all the graphite deposit and some other critical mineral deposit as well. But something that's really interesting to see down from the southern up to Labrador, there is a trend that's called Granville Trend, and all graphite deposit, even in the northern Ontario up to Labrador, are located within this trend. So this is our portfolio. We have 328 claims in 7 early stage properties, and they're all within 50 to 100 kilometers from Loutre property. They're very promising results from 2023 exploration program, and this year we actually focus more on the Meloche, on Rousseau, Lac Tremblant, and Lac Dieppe. So the field program within Rousseau has identified, I believe, the highest grades discovered in the Granville Belt so far. So the grades from the field program resulted in up to 27.9% carbon content at Rousseau. And what's really amazing here, we took 107 samples, and out of these 107 samples, 55 were over 10% carbon content, and 70 something were over 5% carbon content. So it's really high grade deposit. And we have identified these 4 zones, with the first 2 actually being close to 3 kilometers long. Of course, the plan is to work a little bit more on the other further 2 eastern zones and really outline that better as we go further in the fall. At Meloche, we of course have encountered grade as high as 13.3%. Tremblant has returned as well some good grades up to 11.6%. And Dieppe has returned 2 areas with the grades close to 7%. And I want to focus back on the Loutre because this is our flagship property. This is really the biggest value to the company. And this is the project that we're looking to develop and publish pre-feasibility study on. So the latest economic study is the 2021 PEA and looked into producing about 100,000 tons of the graphite concentrate over 15 years, or about 1.5 million tons. So we have surpassed all the testing from the PEA. As I mentioned, we did quite a bit of the work on the metallurgical testing. And we're really proud to say that this is one of the highest grades in the concentrate that we have noted in the area. So flotation testing that we did with SGS actually shown up to 99.1% carbon content just with flotation concentrate. And what that really means for us is that actually as we go downstream to the anode material production, the operating and the capital costs would be lower to purify this material because we're starting with such high grades already. And just to talk a little bit more about the downstream and the grades. So the grades for the anode material are required in the range of plus 99.95% carbon content and very low quantities of the impurities. So we have proven that we actually can do that with the material from Loutre. And the goal for this project is not just to produce flotation concentrate, but to produce anode material as well for batteries, EVs, consumer goods, energy storage. And the current mine plan looks into producing the ore from two zones, EV and the battery. They just called that way, nothing really separates them in the quality or the quantity. And of course, we would start first with the EV zone, a bit higher grade and a bit better strip ratio than the battery zone. So this would be the classic truck and shovel operation. And as we're looking to develop this project, we hope that at that point there would be more of the electric vehicles available to actually run the project. This is 4,000 tons per day operation. And the capex estimated is $236 million with all-in sustaining costs about $400 per ton of the concentrate. I mentioned already that we were really pleased with the results from the mining.com and Mining Intelligence ranking Loutre as the 7th biggest graphite deposit. So the drilling that we did outlined 3 million tons of the measured and indicated resource, and we added up also about 700,000 tons of the inferred. So we were able to convert almost 200% of our resources into M&I. What that means, at the start of the process, we had 3 million tons altogether, with 1 in measured and indicated and 2 in inferred. Ended up with converting all that resource and adding a little bit more, because with the denser drilling, we actually have increased the intercepts and the quantity, the tons as well. I mentioned before also the work on battery testing. We've done quite a bit of the work with Polaris and also with NRC, National Research Council. We did all different types of the purification. Mentioned already, we have achieved over 99.97, 99.99% purity, very low levels of impurities. And actually the best results we have received from thermal purification. But these results that you see down there were done with chemical purification, very good response. We did check full and half coiled cells. We also single layer pouch batteries. The results are exceeding some of the industry standard, very, very good, as I mentioned. And then what we're looking to do next with metallurgical work and battery trials. So we're continuing with work with Kritem, and this is a lab testing, 1,100 kilograms to generate flotation concentrate. And this material is to be used for further discussion with downstreams and discussions about the offtake agreements. And also the next step would be to do a 2,000 cycle battery test with NRC. Also, given the timing, we're looking to do further 500 cycle battery testing with Polaris to actually prove these results we have achieved. We can achieve with more or longer battery testing, more cycles. And we're also looking into some of innovative technologies, including air classification. And we're waiting on some of these results, so far promising. And want to also explore graphene markets and graphene testing, so that work is ongoing. And as I mentioned before, because we have received all these grants, we have started the work on 200-ton bulk sample. At this point, we have identified 5 test locations, and all these locations have been in the permitting stage. So we have applied for ETI and for forestry intervention permits. So far, we're waiting, expecting that to come somewhere in March. And also, I want to really briefly mention the antimony project that we have acquired recently in January. And antimony is one of the critical minerals, and it's used to increase the hardness of the alloys, especially for batteries with lead, copper, and tin. So it's really something that is also subject to the tariffs from the Chinese groups as well, and it's used in semiconductor industry as well. And then really focusing on the project itself, it's an early stage exploration property, and it is located about 25 kilometers northeast from the Beaverbrook, which was the past producing antimony mine. It is on the care and maintenance, and I believe some private group is now really doing further exploration and drilling, but they produce over 600,000 tons of the material, close to 4% antimony grade. And the samples that so far been collected are very promising in gold, close to 60 grams per ton, 11% antimony, 7% zinc, 73 grams per ton silver, and 5.5% lead. So it's really interesting project. And as I mentioned, we're looking forward to do a little bit more work here. And that work could be really focused on reviewing existing data and planning for the field work with some more of the soil sampling program. And that sampling program would be on a grid, of course, looking to collect close to 300 samples. And, following on this sampling program, we would look then to design drilling program later in the year. And I just want to mention our share structure. We have about 48 million shares, some of the warrants, fully diluted about 72 million shares. We work with quite a few groups, some from, of course, Quebec, some from North America, and some also from around the world. We're also Ecologo certified, and what that means that this is the ESG certification program run by UL, and it is for the Quebec-based early stage exploration companies and some of the suppliers as well. So we've been certified now for 2 years, and we adhere to these principles, and we would be adhering as we take on bulk sampling program. With all of this said, I'd like to leave a few minutes for some of the questions.
Thanks a lot, Gordana. As you said, we can get started on the Q&A now. And just a reminder to everyone on the line, you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. So Gordana, maybe I'll start with Yellow Fox. Do you have permits to do exploration work there?
No, not yet. We're at this point in really reviewing stage, data review and planning the programs, so sampling programs, and we'll be of course, looking into permitting further works as we go.
Okay. Moving on to graphite, we have a question on, I guess, the price of graphite, which is if security of supply in Western-friendly countries is a serious concern, why are graphite prices still so low? The antimony price has soared, but graphite has not.
So it's a simple answer to that one. Graphite is really still not in the short supply, and Chinese really haven't pushed on the exports as of yet. So for the graphite to be in short supply, the prediction is in about €2. So Lomiko is really well positioned to get there within the next few years. I don't know if I mentioned that, the DoD grant looks into 5 years to finish all the studies. Bulk sampling program is set for 3 years. So for the next 3 years, for sure, we would be working through the studies and really outlining the deposits, its value, and all other points. Something else is just very important to note, and I mentioned that briefly, is that the industrial applications only grow anywhere between 5 to 7% a year. So it's not a huge market. The biggest market is actually EVs and application in the batteries. So that's still growing at 21, 22% year over year. And Lomiko plans not to just sell flotation concentrate but anode material. And these prices long term, I forgot the number of the slide, but I can go back there, is just looking somewhere about $7,000 US.
Okay, can you maybe comment on the difference between synthetic graphite and natural graphite?
Yeah, so synthetic graphite, of course, as the name says, it's made from oil and petroleum co-product. It is very much energy intensive. It's not a green product either, so it is way more expensive. It produces about 5 times more carbon than it does natural graphite, and it is more expensive as well. So.
Okay. Just going back to the DoD grant and the Natural Resource Canada grant, are those based on any milestones? Like you mentioned, the studies have to be complete in 5 years, but are they tied to any other sort of milestones?
Yeah, of course, there are milestones for all these works, and I'm happy to say that we have initiated these grants. And we're working with DoD and with federal government. We're submitting the claims, and these claims have been processed, and the money is coming back to Lomiko's account.
Okay. What is your exploration budget for this year?
So we're looking to do some work at Rousseau and some work at Yellow Fox. As I mentioned, we want to do some first more soil sampling so we can better define the drill program at the Newfoundland project. And Rousseau is very exciting, such extreme high grades, 27.9% carbon content. And the zones, kilometer and a half each, at least the most western zones. It really doesn't happen every day that you discover new deposits. So we want to put some of the exploration money into Yellow Fox, some in Rousseau, and also the remainder into the bulk sample.
Okay. Does Lomiko have a strategic partner in mind, or is it too early for that?
We're, of course, always looking for strategic partners. At this point, the two biggest strategic partners we have are supporting Lomiko, and Lomiko has been vetted by U.S. government and Canadian federal government. But yeah, we're always open for any other strategic investments.
What about any additional, additions to the portfolio? Do you have any near-term plans to add other critical minerals?
At this point, we'd like to, of course, stay focused on our graphite portfolio on Loutre, and also expand the works on the Yellow Fox. We're a small team, small company. Much more would be too much to manage, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for the Q&A, Gordana. Thank you very much for taking time to host this webinar with us today.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for the invite. And of course, we're always open and available to reach out on our website, through the info email, through the community email, 1-800 number. So any questions are welcome.
Okay, just as a reminder for our audience, our next webinar will feature Next Gold Mining, and that's on February 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in with us, everyone. Have a great day.